Welcome back to Real Family Secrets. Some lies are hidden in messages. Some are hidden in hotel rooms. And some are hidden in the one place you thought your family was safest. I found out my marriage was over on a Friday night in October. Not because I saw a message, not because someone confessed. I found out because I opened the door to our family cabin and someone had already set the table for two. There were two plates, two wine glasses, a fire burning in the stone fireplace, and a man's jacket hanging over the back of my chair. My name is Evan Cole. I'm 44 years old, and I work as a project manager for a commercial construction company outside Madison, Wisconsin. For most of my life, I have been the kind of person who believes problems become manageable once you understand their structure. A delayed permit, a supply shortage, a contractor who promises more than he can deliver. You do not solve those things by shouting. You solve them by reading the paperwork, checking the timeline, and figuring out which part of the story does not fit. I had spent 20 years doing that for buildings. I just never imagined I would have to do it for my own marriage. My wife, Lauren, and I had been married for 11 years. She was 41 and worked as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation clinic in town. Lauren had always been better with people than I was. She remembered names. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She was the kind of woman who could meet someone once at a neighborhood barbecue and remember, 6 months later, that their daughter had started college in Arizona. And for a long time, I thought that was one of the things I loved most about her. We had one child, our daughter, Sophie. She was 9 years old, serious about everything she cared about, and completely unserious about everything else. She loved drawing maps of places she had never been. She could spend an hour building blanket forts in the living room. And every summer, she counted the days until we opened the cabin. The cabin had belonged to my parents. It sat on a small lake about 2 hours north of Madison, near a town called Pine Harbor. It was not luxurious. It had old pine walls, a narrow dock, 2 tiny bedrooms, and a porch that creaked every time someone crossed it. But it was ours, or at least I thought it was. My father bought that place when I was 12. He used to say that the cabin was not valuable because of the lake. It was valuable because nobody could reach you there unless you invited them. There was no traffic, no work calls, no neighbors close enough to borrow sugar, just the water, the trees, and the people sitting at the table with you. When Dad died, Mom gave the cabin to me. She said I was the one who still understood what it was for. For years, Lauren and I took Sophie there almost every other weekend between May and October. Sophie learned to fish off that dock. Lauren taught her how to make pancakes in a cast iron skillet. I taught her how to start a fire without using half a bottle of lighter fluid. The cabin was where we became a family again after every busy week. Or so I believed. That Friday in October, I was supposed to drive up alone after work. Lauren had told me she would come up with Sophie the following morning because Sophie had a birthday sleepover that night. It made sense. Sophie was staying at my sister's house after the party. Lauren said she had promised to help her mother with something in the morning, then planned to drive to the lake around noon. I told her I would get there early, turn the heat on, bring in the firewood, and make sure the place was ready. She smiled at me over breakfast. "Don't stay up waiting," she said. "You know I'll probably get there late." I kissed her forehead. "Drive safe tomorrow." That was the last normal thing I said to my wife. I left work earlier than planned. A meeting got canceled, and for once, the highway north was almost empty. The sun was already dropping behind the trees when I turned onto the gravel road that led toward the lake. I remember feeling relieved. It had been a hard month. My company had taken on a renovation project that was running behind schedule. Sophie had been struggling with math. Lauren had seemed distracted lately, tired in a way that went beyond work. I thought the weekend would help us. I thought the cabin might bring us back to ourselves. Then I saw the light. The cabin windows glowed through the trees. At first, I assumed I had forgotten to turn off a lamp during our last visit. That had happened before, but as I got closer, I saw smoke lifting from the chimney. Thin, steady, fresh. Someone had lit a fire. I parked beside the cabin and sat in my truck for a few seconds. I told myself it was probably my mother. She still had a key. Or maybe Lauren had driven up early without telling me. Maybe she wanted to surprise me. There are moments when the mind offers you every possible explanation except the one your body has already understood. I got out of the truck. The porch light was on. The front door was unlocked. And when I opened it, warm air rolled over me. It smelled like cedar wood, wine, and something unfamiliar. A sharp, expensive cologne I had never worn. The table was set for two, not casually, not like someone had made dinner and forgotten to clear it away. 2 cloth napkins, 2 wine glasses, a small bowl of olives, a bottle of red wine opened beside a candle that had burned halfway down. On the counter, there was a cutting board with sliced bread and cheese, and over the back of the chair where I always sat was a dark gray jacket. I knew immediately that it did not belong to me. It was too narrow in the shoulders, too polished, the kind of jacket someone wore to dinner in the city, not to haul firewood or clean leaves out of gutters. For a moment, I did not move. The fire snapped behind me. The old refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, water touched the shore in slow, small waves. I remember thinking that the room looked almost beautiful. And that was the worst part. Someone had taken the place where my daughter learned to fish, the place where my father's old boots still sat by the door, and turned it into a room for a lie. I walked through the cabin. The bedroom was empty. The bathroom was empty. The back porch was empty. No one was there. But the bed in the main room had been made differently. Lauren always used the old blue quilt my mother had sewn. That night, it was folded at the end of the bed. The white sheets underneath were smooth. Too smooth. On the small dresser beside the lamp sat 2 glasses of water. One was half empty. The other still had a thin line of condensation around it. They had been there recently. Very recently. I stepped back into the living room. Then I noticed something on the floor near the rug, a receipt. It had been folded in half, but not carefully. I picked it up. It was from the Pine Harbor Marina. Fuel, ice, 2 bags of firewood, and a boat rental for 2 hours. The date was that afternoon. The name on the receipt was not Lauren's. It was not mine. It said, Miles Hart. I stood there looking at that name for a long time. I did not know any Miles Hart. I did not call Lauren. I did not throw the jacket into the lake. I did not take pictures of the bedroom or search through drawers. I sat down in my own chair, the one with the stranger's jacket hanging over it, and I waited. At 8:14 that night, I heard a car on the gravel road. I did not turn on any additional lights. I did not move. Headlights passed across the front wall. A car door closed. Then the cabin door opened. Lauren stepped inside. She was wearing jeans, boots, and a dark green sweater I had bought her the previous Christmas. Her hair was damp around the edges, like she had been near the lake. She stopped the second she saw me. Her hand tightened around her keys. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at the table, the wine, the jacket, and finally at me. Evan, she said quietly. Who is Miles Hart? She closed her eyes. Not in confusion, not in surprise, in recognition. That was all I needed to see. She began. Then she stopped. I looked at the jacket. You can start with why he left this in our cabin. Lauren put her purse down slowly. It's not what you think. I had heard that sentence in movies. I had heard it from friends. I had heard it from contractors when an inspection showed a wall built wrong behind new drywall. It's not what you think. Then tell me what I'm looking at. She walked toward the table, but did not sit. Miles is someone I know from work. Why was he here? He needed to get away for a few hours. I looked at her, and he needed the fireplace, the wine, the boat rental, and my chair? Her face tightened. Please don't make this ugly. Lauren, I came here to make the cabin warm for you and Sophie tomorrow. I pointed toward the table. Someone already did. She looked down. I didn't plan for you to come tonight. There are sentences that do not need an explanation. They carry their own weight. They tell you the truth before the person speaking has decided how much of it they are willing to admit. How long? She did not answer. How long has he been coming here? It wasn't like that at first. Lauren. Since June, she whispered. The fire cracked. I looked at the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. It still had Sophie's handwriting on it from the summer. Little stars on weekends we were supposed to come up together. Fishing day, movie night, Dad's pancakes. Since June. That meant while Sophie and I were making memories there, Lauren had already begun making different ones. Does Sophie know him? I asked. Lauren's eyes filled immediately. No. Has he been here when she was here? No. Are you sure? Yes. Her voice broke on the word. I believed she was scared. I believed she was ashamed. But I no longer believed her automatically. I stood up. You need to take his jacket, your bag, and whatever else belongs to you. Evan, please, we need to talk. We can talk tomorrow. I don't want to drive back alone. You drove here alone. Her face changed. She understood that the man she knew had left the room, not because I became cruel, because I had finally stopped protecting her from the consequences of what she had chosen. Please don't tell Sophie, she said. I looked at her for a moment. I would never put this on her. Then I added, but I won't lie to her for you either. Lauren took the jacket. She left without taking the wine. I watched her taillights disappear down the road. Then I sat in front of the fire until it went out. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. For a few minutes, I forgot. I heard birds near the window. I smelled cold ashes. I saw the lake through the trees. Then I saw one of the wine glasses still sitting on the table. And I remembered everything. I made coffee. I walked down to the dock. The water was completely still. For years, I had come to that dock when life felt too loud. I thought the lake made things simpler, but that morning, it did not make anything simple. It only made it impossible to hide from what I knew. At 7:30, my phone rang. It was Lauren. I let it ring twice before answering. Evan, I'm here. I didn't sleep. Neither did I. I'm sorry. I know. There was silence. Then she said, Miles is married. I looked out at the lake. That makes 4 people who should have known better. He told me he was separating. Did he? I don't know. Did you ever ask his wife? Lauren did not answer. That told me enough. She began crying. I was unhappy, she said. I felt like we had stopped seeing each other. I let her finish. Because some truths are real, even when they are used as excuses. We had drifted. I worked too much. I brought job stress home. I assumed paying bills, fixing things, and showing up every weekend meant I was doing enough. I had mistakes in our marriage. But mistakes are not permission slips. You could have told me, I said. I know. You could have asked for counseling. I know. You could have asked for a separation. I know. But you used our cabin. She cried harder at that, and I hated that I still felt something when I heard it. Not forgiveness, not pity, just grief. Grief for the woman I married. Grief for the home I thought we had. Grief for the version of myself who had believed that a quiet life was the same thing as a safe one. I need space, I told her. I know. I'm going to speak with an attorney. Okay, and I'm changing the locks at the cabin. She inhaled sharply. Evan, this is not punishment. It feels like punishment. No, I said. It's a boundary. You turned that place into something I did not agree to. I need it to become safe again before Sophie ever walks through that door. I ended the call. That afternoon, I drove into Pine Harbor. I bought a new lock set from the hardware store. The owner, an older man named Dale, knew my father. He looked at the old lock in my hand and said, "You finally replacing that thing?" "Yeah," I said. "It's time." He nodded. Some things last longer than they should. I did not know whether he meant the lock. Maybe he did. I changed it myself. Then I walked through the cabin room by room. I did not destroy anything. I did not throw away photographs. I did not remove Lauren from every frame as if she had never existed. I was not trying to rewrite the past. I was trying to stop it from continuing in a lie. On the mantel was a picture of Sophie at 6 years old, holding up a fish barely bigger than her hand. Lauren stood behind her, laughing. I stood beside them, sunburned and proud. For a moment, I almost left it there. Then I took it down and placed it in a drawer. Not because it was false, because I could not look at it yet without wondering which memories were real and which were only waiting to break. The following week, I met with an attorney named Melissa Grant. She came recommended by a colleague who had gone through a difficult divorce 2 years earlier. Melissa listened while I explained what had happened. She did not promise me an easy outcome. She did not tell me I would win. She told me to be careful. She told me not to move money recklessly. She told me to keep communications focused on Sophie and practical matters. And she told me that pain often makes people want immediate answers when what they really need is a stable plan. "That cabin was inherited from your parents?" she asked. "Yes." "Keep the documents organized. We'll review everything properly." I nodded. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding. "What do you want?" I thought about it. For the first time since Friday night, I did not answer immediately. "I want my daughter to feel safe," I said. Melissa nodded. "And for yourself, I want to stop feeling like I have to carry the truth alone." The days after that were not dramatic. They were worse in some ways. They were ordinary. I went to work. I picked Sophie up from school. I helped her with math. I made pasta on Tuesdays because that was the one meal I could cook without looking at a recipe. Lauren stayed at her sister's apartment. We told Sophie that Mom and Dad were working through grown-up problems and that none of it was her fault. She asked if we were getting divorced. I had prepared for anger. I had prepared for tears. I had not prepared for the small, quiet way she asked it while coloring at the kitchen table. I sat beside her. "I don't know everything yet," I said, "but I know you are loved." "By both of you?" "By both of us." She nodded, but she did not look convinced. Then she asked, "Can we still go to the cabin?" I looked at the drawing in front of her. It was a map, a lake, a little square cabin, a dock, 3 stick figures. "I think we can," I said, "but not right away." "Why?" "Because sometimes places need time too." She thought about that. Then she added a 4th stick figure. "My sister Claire. Maybe Aunt Claire can come," she said. "Maybe she can." A month passed. Then another. Lauren admitted that Miles had been coming to the cabin more often than she first said. Not every week, but enough. He had told his wife he was traveling for work. Lauren had told me she was visiting her mother, attending professional seminars, or helping friends. The lies were not clever. They were only effective because I had trusted her. That is something people do not always understand about betrayal. Trust is not stupidity. Trust is the agreement you believe another person has chosen with you. Lauren and I started mediation conversations about our separation. Some days, she sounded devastated. Other days, she sounded defensive. She said she had felt lonely. She said I had been absent. She said the cabin was the only place she felt like herself. I told her I was sorry for the ways I had failed to be present, but I would not accept responsibility for the choices she made in secret. Eventually, she stopped trying to make me. Miles's wife found out on her own, not because I contacted her, not because I wanted to cause more damage. Miles told Lauren that he had confessed after his wife saw receipts from Pine Harbor Marina and asked why he had been renting boats near a town where he claimed he had no business. Lauren told me this during one of our conversations. I remember standing in my kitchen with the phone against my ear. She said, "He's moving out." I looked at the sink full of dishes, at Sophie's backpack by the door, at a cereal bowl she had left on the counter. "I'm sorry that his family is hurting," I said. Then I added, "But that is not my life to manage." It was one of the hardest sentences I had ever said, and one of the first that made me feel free. In early spring, Sophie asked again about the cabin. The snow had started melting. The days were longer. She had grown quieter over the winter, but she still talked about the lake. She missed the dock. She missed the pancakes. She missed the old game where we tried to identify birds badly and confidently. So I called my sister. Claire said yes before I finished asking. The first weekend in May, the three of us drove north. Sophie sat in the back seat with a new sketchbook in her lap. She did not ask whether Lauren would come. I did not tell her that Lauren had asked, not that weekend. That first trip back belonged to Sophie. When we arrived, the cabin looked smaller than I remembered. The porch still creaked. The pine trees still leaned toward the lake. The old wind chime still made the same uneven sound in the breeze. Sophie stood in the doorway and looked around. "Did you change the lock?" she asked. "I did." "Why?" I paused. Then I said, "Because sometimes a home needs better protection." She nodded slowly. Then she ran toward her room. Aunt Claire laughed from behind me. "You handled that well." "I'm trying." That night, we made pancakes for dinner. Sophie insisted that breakfast food tasted better after sunset. She was right. Later, she sat beside me on the dock, her feet barely touching the water. The sky was purple over the lake. A small boat moved across the far shore. "Dad?" she said. "Yeah?" "Do you think Mom misses this place?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her everything and nothing. Instead, I looked at my daughter. "I think people can miss a place," I said, "and still need to understand why they can't go back to it the same way." She was quiet. Then she leaned against my shoulder. "Will we be okay?" I wrapped my arm around her. "We're going to keep being honest," I said, "and we're going to keep showing up." Is that the same thing as okay? I think it's how okay begins. A year later, the divorce was final. Lauren and I learned how to speak politely about schedules, school events, doctor appointments, and the things parents have to keep doing, even after the marriage is gone. It was not easy. Some conversations were cold. Some were sad. Some were unexpectedly kind, but there were no more lies about where either of us was going. No more doors unlocked for people who did not belong there. No more pretending that silence was peace. The cabin stayed with me. Not because I won something, not because Lauren lost something, but because it came from my father, and because Sophie still needed one place in the world that felt steady. We go there now at the beginning of every summer. Sometimes Claire comes, sometimes Sophie brings a friend. Sometimes it is only the two of us. Last June, Sophie stood on the dock with a fishing rod in her hands. She was 11 by then, tall enough that I had to look up slightly when she spoke to me. She caught a fish bigger than anything she had ever caught before. She screamed, then laughed, then looked at me with that same fierce, proud expression she had when she sang in school concerts or solved a hard problem by herself. "Dad," she said, holding up the fish. "Take a picture." So I did. I took the picture. I watched her lower the fish back into the lake, and I stood there beside her in the evening light, understanding something I had not understood before. A home is not protected because nothing bad ever happens inside it. A home is protected when the people who remain refuse to build their life on a lie. The cabin had been a place where I found out my marriage was over. For a while, I thought that was all it would ever be, but I was wrong. Because Sophie still laughed there. The lake still held the sky. The porch still creaked. The pancakes still burned around the edges if I got distracted. And little by little, the cabin became ours again. Not the old version. Not the version I had imagined. A truer one. One built with a new lock. A clear boundary in the quiet understanding that some doors should only open for people who are willing to enter honestly.
The room glows with memories, your perfume swirling in the late afternoon. I run my fingers over the tattoo you traced on my skin. Heartbeats sync, skipping rhythm over silent truth. Your laughter spilled red wine on the carpet. You call it art, I call it a map back to you. We paint confessions on broken picture frames, wrapped in your hair, tangled in secrets I'm not trying to escape. Heavy with longing, I draw promises on steam glass. You question everything, but I'm steady as your shadow. Even when you fold your words, I read between the lines. Let's step past boundaries with no excuse. You catch me falling, I never ask for rescue. If tomorrow tears us apart, let tonight be truth. Trace your name and breath on my window. Our story written out loud, no silence left to hide. Every word, every mark is ours to keep. Midnight echo stories in the hallway. You collect half smiles for rainy days. Hands speak when mouths hesitate. You drop your guard and dare me to follow. We're reckless, but honest, burning through doubt, burning through doubt. Ooh. Spin me into forgiveness, unravel every secret. No questions, no bargaining, just the ache in my chest. We crumble our pride and build something new. I'm yours in this moment with no borrowed time. Tomorrow tears us apart. Let tonight be truth. Trace your name and breath on my window.